I just endured a situation where I thought an apology was owed to me. I felt wronged and I expressed my feeling, and that apology never arrived. And I've been in situations where, conversely, I've offered an apology. One quite recently that was not only shunned, but rejected with fervor. And this makes me think of a couple instances where the apologies were just terrible. So, regardless of their intent or result, they were just lame ass apologies. In fact, I think the second one is the worst apology ever. Hello, and welcome to the No Hair, All Heart podcast. I'm your No Hair Bald host, Mookie Spitz. And the affair of the heart that I'll be talking about today is that very worst apology I've ever received, and how saying I'm sorry is often just another lame excuse. The second worst apology ever is on me. It happened a couple years ago when I visited my hometown of Chicago. And I did a bit of a tour, a nostalgia tour back through the old neighborhoods I lived in, the businesses I worked at. And I returned to a bar that I managed 2 decades prior, back in the mid 1990s. Although a lifetime had since elapsed, many of the original employees were still working there, including the evening's DJ. It was literally like a time machine. 1995, 1996, fast forward to 2024. Wow. Same people, same employees. Obviously new faces, but wow. What a time capsule. Mookie! Shouted the DJ, seeing me first and rushing over. So glad to see you. It's been forever. Indeed, it had. Time seemed to stop. The bartender poured us a round of shots. The DJ and I patted each other on the back, and we made small talk as if that evening were no different than the one from 10, 20 years before, 30 years before. OMG. As we chatted, I remembered our distinct dynamic. He was a young entertainer, and I could make or break his burgeoning career based on whether or not I filled a box on the weekly schedule by the office with or without his name for the night. Although he was well liked, I thought his spinning sucked and used him only as a standby. He was my plan, not even plan B, but my plan C. If I couldn't get the big talent, and then the backup talent couldn't make it, then I knew this guy would do it. He was hungry for it. His talent, essentially inversely proportional to his enthusiasm. Or I should say, his enthusiasm was somewhat at odds with his talent. Anyway, one weekend shift, I sat in the bar's office ranting to a bartender how much I doubted this kid's abilities and only booked him that busy night because I had no choice. I was venting. I was being an asshole. Hours later, at the end of the shift, after I paid him, the DJ looked at me with hurt, puppy dog eyes. I heard what you said about me. That was crushing. I knew I had fucked up. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. But what did that power amount to? Manager of a nightclub in Chicago. I guess there I was all powerful, at least in terms of giving and taking away shifts, putting money in people's pockets and ostensibly taking it out if I didn't put it in. And I always thought that I was generous, that I was fair, that I went out of my way to placate employees, not abuse them. But we all gossip. We all share in reckless banter. And he overheard. Did I want him to overhear? Was there a part of me that just wanted to communicate to this kid that he just didn't have the chops? Maybe. But by any stretch of the imagination, I was an asshole. Anyway, fast forward more than 20 years later, there I sat next to him, same guy. And again, I felt guilty. After all, managing a bar is like being a cop. You see the very best and very worst of people every day, usually the worst. Becoming that kind of an asshole isn't a consequence of the job, it's a prerequisite for getting it and keeping it. Maybe I didn't have the chops. Being an asshole for a lot of people comes naturally. I had to work at it, and I obviously wasn't very good at it. In retrospect, I honestly felt I had been unfair to that kid. And there he was, now a middle-aged guy who somehow looked almost exactly the same as he did 20, 25, 30 years ago. My opinion that he had no game was self-evident by him still spinning at the same club decades later. But that was, of course, beside the point. I had done this guy wrong. "I'm sorry," I said to him, the non sequitur catching him off guard. "What do you mean?" he asked. "I was shady to you back in the day," I said, "and I could have done so much better. You were always a conscientious, earnest, really great guy, and you deserve much better from me, so I'm sorry, all right? Cheers." His expression shifted from surprise to confusion. I could tell he understood I was trying to apologize, but he had no idea what the fuck for. Scanning his own memory banks, he came up empty. He literally had no recollection of that night he overheard me talking shit about him. That one night that I had ruminated over, that one night that I instantly remembered. But he didn't have the remote inkling of a clue. "I don't know why you'd say that," he finally said. "I remember we had so much fun all the time." In that moment, I went from feeling like an asshole to feeling like an idiot. Not only was I shady to him back then, but I had just ruined our otherwise wonderful reunion and heartfelt reminiscence by regurgitating my guilt and reminding him of something that he had long ago forgotten. So it was obviously a bigger deal for me than it was for him, and he was the one who was devastated at the time. What a lame apology. That's nothing, though, compared to the first worst, very worst apology ever. And thank goodness this wasn't from me. This was from an assistant manager of that same bar, a trendy Chicago hotspot that brought out the very best and whoa, the very worst. I managed the dance club in back, while this guy helped manage the Brazilian restaurant at the front of the club. They served dinner until about 10 p.m. on weekend nights, when the dining area converted to a dance floor. The waiters would clear the tables and chairs, they would clean up and do their thing, And then within about 45 minutes, an hour of the close of the club, the doors would open, the disco lights would be activated, and the dining room floor became that dance floor. Voila! The bar owner was an even bigger dick than I was, who loved to pit staff against staff to get his rocks off, while somehow also believing that the ongoing rivalries would encourage profitable competition. All his bullshit drama ever did was encourage the entire staff to hate him more than we hated each other. The overall results were heightened inefficiencies and endless graft. Everyone tried ripping him off, and in doing so, ripping me off since I was accountable for the till, at least on the dance floor side of the house. Employees stole everywhere they could, from the cover booth to the bars to the coat check room. Part of my pitch for getting promoted from bartender to manager was promising to clean the joint up, which I more or less did. I rotated the bartender stations, inventoried the booze, counted drawers, blinded receipts, and fired anyone I busted boosting. Never had any bar boss been more despised than I was, which was an understandable reaction coming from corrupt staff accustomed to taking home 4 times their salaries in cash before my illustrious reign. Talk about bar rescue. I was bar rescue before the bar rescue guy was cool, was before the show even launched. I should have launched that show. What am I doing podcasting? I learned so much about how a bar can run itself into the ground, how employees steal, how systems need to be in place, how entertainment needs to be programmed. Seriously, I should be doing that. Anyway, back at the time, back in the day, back in the 90s, when I was the man, I was running this club. What made zero sense to me was this assistant manager of the restaurant up front trying to bust my balls too. Ostensibly part of the management team, in principle, he owed allegiance to the business owner who paid his salary, to the sustenance of the bar, of the restaurant. No bar, no restaurant. Everyone keeps ripping everyone off. The business is unsustainable. How many times have you seen an otherwise successful business or a club or a restaurant suddenly close shop? And oftentimes the reason cited or the excuse made is that the rent went up, or the city had a grudge, or something was going on, when 95% of the time the employees are eating the business up from within. Anyway, this guy's allegiance should have been to the owner of the club and at least get along with me. We were on the same team. Instead, he was focused on pleasing his peers, who gave away free food and booze for pocketed tips, talked shit about me, talked shit about the owner, yet antagonize, harass, scheme, conspire, sabotage, and endlessly trash talk me he did. And every chance he got, he spied on my books through a shared office computer, pitted our shared bar and restaurant staff against me, and sent his guests and my patrons to competing dance clubs on the nights that I worked. Booyah! Whenever he interacted with me, he seemed cordial and helpful, of course, often trying to cozy up with sob stories about how tough we both had it as managers in such a backstabbing viper's den. Liars and cowards and thieves, oh my, we would joke to each other. Kindred souls in Oz hell. Yeah, right. All along, I knew that this guy was full of shit, the full extent made manifest when he blamed me for running the entire business into the ground, which of course the business eventually ground into. Truth was, the Latin club next door kicked our ass, and his Fufu Bistro, the Brazilian restaurant up front, stopped trending. So the sly owner burned the whole place to the ground for the insurance money. Look it up. Anyway, the Weasley manager ran into me a year later at the other club I was still managing. He skulked right in. I saw him. He saw me. Okay, big guy, now what? He came up to me and he said he was sorry. He said he was sorry for doing what he did, for skulking around, for making my life miserable. I didn't care then, I honestly replied, and I don't care now either, which was true. He hurled so much bullshit at me, and my reaction was surprising even then. I really didn't give a shit. He was so pathetic in demeanor at the time. He was so obviously duplicitous that it was more ridiculous than tragic, let alone threatening. Anyway, after I said that I didn't give a shit what he did then, and by extension, didn't give a shit that he was apologizing now, he looked at me, utterly crushed. The very least you can do is appreciate my apology, he whined. Yeah, never before or since have I heard anything that pathetic. So, yes, dear listeners, apologies are wrought and fraught with peril. Everyone remarks how our president, number 47, never, ever apologizes. And then the other day, as I mentioned, I apologized and I got the attitude thrown right back in my face. And in retrospect, had I not apologized, had I just explosively let this guy have it, like I explosively let this guy have it, which ostensibly engendered my ham-fisted and unnecessary apology, had I just done that with impunity, I no doubt would have been better off. And this pathetic assistant manager who came up to me after the fact to apologize, what a whiny bitch he was, did himself a similar disservice. And me, when I apologized decades later to someone I felt that I had rightly wronged, he didn't remember. He didn't even care. So all this begs the question of the value of an apology, no matter how heartfelt, the value of an apology, no matter how much a pathetic extension of already reprehensible behavior, which makes me wonder overall why an apology is often extolled as any kind of desirable behavior. If you're listening and you have an opinion, send me a text or message in the description notes below, because I'm still trying to figure it out. I still have no hair, but a lot of heart. Thank you for listening. Comment, share, and get set for another installment, another bald and heartfelt story coming your way soon.